You're like the first really big YouTuber I'm chatting with. How did you get into YouTube?
So I designed my own jewelry, which was called Maqaroon, and that's where the name comes from. So what I did was I wore my own bracelets, I did a crafting video, and then if people liked the bracelets, then they could always go to my shop. That's pretty much how I started. After 1 or 2 years, I realized that lots of people liked watching the crafting videos. And then for me, myself, I also thought, honestly, I have a lot more fun just making YouTube videos. If I can make enough money to live just doing YouTube videos, then why not?
With more than 4 million subscribers, multiple golden play buttons, and over a decade of experience on the platform, Joanna has become one of Austria's largest YouTubers. But what's really interesting is how she's been able to stick around while so many others quit. So I needed to ask her, what is it like to have the kind of success many creators dream about? We'll talk about how she evolved over time as trends have changed, and how she's able to balance it with life and family. Hi, my name is Valentin, and if you take anything away from this conversation, it would be awesome if you could leave a comment down below. But for now, join me in this conversation to get a fresh perspective on what it means to being a full-time creator. You have been on YouTube for 10 years now. Mm-hmm. How does that feel? Like, what is that like?
The thing is, I think back, I'm almost quite shocked myself how long it's been, because in my head, I feel young. I still feel like when I have the same ideas and I have the same motivation like when I first started. And sometimes I'm shocked myself that it's been so long that I've made these videos. And it's been years and years since this style was used on YouTube. I need to keep on changing. I have to force myself to keep on adapting my style and to change some little bits and pieces of the videos just to kind of make it more relevant.
How do you actually do that? Because your channel definitely has evolved and you're able to pick up on what's trendy and kind of like maintain relevance, or just you still get good amounts of views, you're still making money from it. How do you stay on trend?
That's actually part of my what I find most exciting about doing YouTube is that how do I pick up on what is going to be the next, I wouldn't say big thing, I just say interesting thing. There are also like little weird things online somewhere where a lot of people have seen, a lot of people know about, but nobody knows more about it. So it's almost like one clip of something happening and everyone's like, well, what is that? Like, we've seen it, we like it, but we don't know anything about it. And I think that's the place where then my channel comes in. I always try to find these trends. And then if I see a video like that, my immediate thought is, where do I get these materials? How do I make it? How do I tell people how they can make it for themselves? What is being shown? What is the actual material? Because often it's something that's so weird that you can't even tell what it is. And then that's what I do. So I find something, then I do everything I can to find the same things that are being used in that viral clip. And then I make a much longer YouTube video explaining it to people and tell them, this is the new trend. This is what they're using. I'm going to try doing it myself, just like kind of walk people through it.
When I started on YouTube, I feel like I was always trying to like jump on trends because then you get views. But I really quickly just like, that wasn't interesting to me. Or it's like, it becomes even hard to find what is trendy, do it at the right time. Do you have any kind of system for spotting trends? Is it more of a feeling?
I think it's both. I think it definitely comes from practice, because I spend a lot of time on different platforms, on all possible social media platforms, just looking. It's interesting for me. I think it's fun. I'm consuming it as a consumer, but at the same time, I'm always actively thinking, could this be something that's interesting enough for several million people? So it's not something that, I guess every small thing that's sort of cute could be interesting for maybe a few thousand or 10,000 people, but I'm looking for the big things, like the trends that have this immediate viral potential. And it's more of a gut feeling as well. When looking for the trends, I said I was on many platforms because a lot of these trends come from China. I know some Chinese. I have a WeChat account. I can access Chinese social media platforms like Xiaohongshu, which is like the Chinese Instagram. And a lot of those trends come from there. And then it trickles outwards. That's my experience. It's always these clips. They usually come from China, Korea, or Japan, somewhere in Asia. And then somebody reposts it onto Instagram, then it blows up. That's how almost, I say, 90% of these trends start. So I always try to be a step ahead.
It is fascinating to see this whole creator space evolve, because in like 2014, 2016, when you started, at least at that time, I made movies. I don't really know what the YouTube landscape was, except for Casey made vlogs.
Yes.
And yeah, girls in bedrooms made makeup tutorials. That is kind of the era, right?
Exactly.
And the word creator economy didn't exist. What's your perspective on this? How has the world, or the creator world, changed in those last 10 years?
In the beginning, people were filming in their bedrooms and the videos were short. Back then, it was 6 minutes was a long video.
Yes.
And then, of course, it gets longer and longer. And the effort you need to make a 10-minute video, 15, 20-minute video, it just gets harder and harder. And then these small creators get pushed out by bigger companies or agencies that have more capacity to make videos faster. That's basically why the whole DIY community on YouTube just collapsed. The indie, I would say indie DIY. Because for me, there were people like myself who were just super creative, and they were at home and they were just doing experiments in their kitchen and trying to find out something fun and exciting and this kind of authentic connection that they wanted to have with their audience. And it was fun, and there was stuff that goes viral. And then there were content farms. I'm sure everyone's heard about them, like 5-minute crafts.
5 minutes.
Yeah, you know those really weird channels, and they're hiring people to just make knockoff videos of the typical indie YouTube vlogger style, but much faster. So they were doing this at a rate that no one else could keep up.
How do you deal with it just on a personal level when you see a video that could be yours but isn't yours?
I guess in the beginning, I sometimes, occasionally, if they slip up and sometimes they take the thumbnails. If they take something from a thumbnail that's extremely similar to the point where you could say, okay, this thumbnail has been copied from this thumbnail, I would try to claim it. But if I just see it's just the process itself, or it's the design of a product that I made or created, I think over the years, I just thought, there's no point getting angry about it. You have to be able to just let it go and say, this is also part of the job. There's good and bad things to every type of job. And the space where I'm in, that is something that's going to happen. And I guess for me, the challenge is I need to stay ahead of that. Instead of just always looking back and getting angry that somebody copied this video of mine from blah, blah, blah. I upload something and it's in the past. And then for me, it's about looking forward. For me, it's focusing on what's the next trend.
I like that. Move forward, forget what's in the past. I think that's a good mental framework to have. You've met some people along the way. Some are still making videos. Others have fallen off. A lot of people at the beginning of this year quit. What do you think is the difference between somebody who really sticks to this long term and who just stops after, 6 months, a year, 2 years?
There are many personal factors in there too. Age is a factor, because a lot of YouTube creators, content creators in general, especially also for other platforms, they tend to be very young when they start. Yeah. And if you're young and you just don't have the work experience, and you happen to have something that blows up, say that you have some kind of format and people want to watch it, and all of a sudden you're getting views, you're making money, that's fun, and anybody can get into that. Everyone's like, wow, I'm going to quit my job now. I want to be a full-time YouTuber, and it's great and it works for a while. But I think after a couple of years, once that trend goes away, then it quickly becomes apparent who kind of have built up the framework that the difference between a business and just the sort of, I'm just riding the wave of being viral. So I think the people who tend to stick around for longer are ones who are older. They might have more work experience. They might already be registered as freelancers, so they know what they're getting themselves into. Once you know the freelance life, you're used
to the roller coaster.
You're used to roller coaster. Okay, you have a client who pays you, another one doesn't, and okay, this month you have no money. The next month you're going to save that up, and of course you have to keep half of that on your bank account for your social insurance, for your tax. Yeah. It's common sense if you've been working in that way. But I also think a lot of creators who are kind of just thrown into the spotlight have no idea where to start, and you can't expect them to. And I think that kind of filters some people out quite quickly. Like a lot of people do it for a couple of years and then they sort of crash and burn because they realize it's harder than they expected. You have all these costs that pile up after 3 years when you might not be getting the same amount of views anymore.
It's interesting that you mention it because that's also something I observed that the people who are successful, for lack of a better term, are people who have prior experience professionally. And I always thought it was just because they had something to talk about, but I never really thought about, oh, they have experience, doing the paperwork, doing all the admin stuff. They have this, they're used to this up and down.
It's kind of like a mindset or a lifestyle. And if you're used to that lifestyle, it doesn't make a big difference to your life. You just think, oh, well, it's the same thing, it goes up and down. If anything, Google, if AdSense is more regular than a freelance lifestyle because at least they pay you every month. If you're a freelancer, you're chasing invoices all the time and you might have a huge project that lasts many, many months and then you might not get paid for all of those months.
Yeah.
So it's very much, I think it's based on the work experience, the mindset, and also the age of the person.
But if I look at your channel, I feel like there's no sponsorships on there. Are you really just making this work with just AdSense? Because when you watch like common YouTube advice, it's like make a product, get sponsors, like all these like ways to make money. AdSense doesn't matter anyways, it's just found money. What's your perspective on that?
For me personally, it's not ideal. It's not what I would 100% like to be doing, but I find that for the past couple of years, particularly after the pandemic, it was firstly harder to find sponsors. Recently as well, I mean, currently it's still ongoing. It's not really a time where there's a lot of economic security, where there's not a lot of growth. People are worried about their resources, about their jobs, and you definitely notice a knock-on effect. And out of the companies that do so, they're offering less, to the point where sometimes I think, is it worth me compromising the content of my video and putting in all that messages and all the adverts and trying to sell this thing to my followers for what they're offering? Because for me, I'd much rather just make good content. And I have a small daughter who's 5 years old now. Great fun, but it's still very difficult on a personal level to be able to say, if a company comes and says, we need this video done by next week. 10 or 8 years ago, that wouldn't have been a problem. I sit down, I know I can work on this until next week. But then if you have a child, anything could happen. They could get sick. You'd still need to, you spend a lot of time just doing stuff on the weekends with your child. You can't say, well, this weekend I'm going to be working and lock yourself in the room. So a lot of things just don't work out anymore the way it used to. So that's why I basically don't do any sponsorships now.
Do you have like some kind of schedule? Are you treating it like a regular 9-to-5 day job, or how do you manage your time?
I mean, on a typical, an ideal situation, ideal week, I do have a much more of a structured routine now compared to a couple of years ago. So I would bring my daughter to kindergarten, then I would come here, I would film my videos, and then I just take the footage and then I do the editing at home. So sometimes it would mean I would, after dinner, after I put my kid to bed, I go back to the office. I'm still filming up until midnight or even later, just so that I can get that work done, or I can get that project finished. Or I'm editing really late into the night. So I still do as much as I can, but I also realize that it's not, to stay competitive and to be able to accept sponsorships or kind of consistently put out a lot of content, for me right now, I don't have that time. And I don't want to push myself to the point of trying to do that, because I don't think that's healthy anymore on many levels. And like you said, some people quit because they burn out.
And for your videos, do you have any kind of schedule? Do you have consistent schedule, or do you publish when things are ready or when new trends emerge? How do you do that?
Yeah, no schedule. I used to have a schedule, but that's one of the first rules that kind of went out the window, where I thought I'm just going to try to do as much as I can, the best I can, and not push myself to stick to a schedule, because that's just a rule which doesn't need to be there. Because that's the thing. The YouTube used to be very much, people say, yeah, on Tuesdays and Saturdays, I have videos on those 2 days, and everyone will be looking forward to a video. But that's also very much dated. So a lot of YouTube channels, which are very successful, publish quite sporadically. I think it's kind of YouTube is more it's kind of evolved to a point where people would much rather see really good quality content. Doesn't matter when. Like they're happy to wait for it, as long as they know this creator is still making things for them. They might be offline for a while, but they're making the next video, which is going to be great, rather than sitting down and just watching the 2 videos twice a week. But they might not be that good, because it's not really possible, depending on which genre, to make 2 excellent videos a week if you're just working by yourself.
You still do everything by yourself, or have you hired anybody to work with you?
No, I have nobody helping me. And I did at one point try kind of having someone film with me, but that didn't quite work out. But I also know that's a process that's very individual for many YouTubers. You really have to find the right person, and just, wasn't my luck that I didn't really find anyone that worked for this style of for this workflow. However, I also worked with Lisa, who was another YouTuber, on the German channel very closely for many years. It was called Cute Life Hacks.de, so German version of Cute Life Hacks. And that worked out really well because we were able to split some of the workload. Except I think what really changed everything was 2020, the pandemic. At that point, I suddenly realized that this way of working, where I say I'm by myself, I do have some overheads, which of course would be my office. I've got some equipment, but if I can keep my costs so low to the point where the only thing I need to worry about is just making enough turnover for me to live as one person, it's not that difficult. So it's doable. It's doable without getting yourself in potential trouble. And I thought, if I, for instance, had a team at that point, of course, I could be making more content. I could be making more money. But if I have people on payroll and I'm paying my employees and they need to have their salary plus, all the insurance and the tax and stuff above, and you have those costs piling up month after month, then you will be in trouble if something happens, like a lockdown, and then all the companies decide not to do sponsorships, and all of a sudden, the algorithm could easily change within half a year. All of a sudden, the channel is not making the views, and then you've committed yourself to all these costs, and you're of course, as a employer, you're responsible for these people. Then that could easily just get too much after a while, and then the problem is the fallout is more than just saying, okay, I'm going to quit. And if you're in financial issues because you've just taken on too much commitment, then other people will have to suffer along with you. And I don't.
Yeah, so being by yourself, keeping your overhead low, just gives you that freedom to do the things that you enjoy and not put pressure on you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way I work is also, in my head, it's the one with the minimal amount of risk and potential fallout. Because I also know, social media is very unpredictable. And the worst thing that can happen would be I don't get enough views. It's not the end of the world. Yeah, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm like, you're responsible for a payroll of so many people, and then, something happens to the channel, and all of a sudden you just can't pay them. I was a freelancer myself. I don't want to be in the sort of the reverse position. Like, I've also not been paid by a couple of clients on occasion.
I think everybody freelancing experienced that.
Yeah, but it sucks. Like, you don't want to be put in that position. And I'm too worried I don't want to put anyone else in that position. And if it works, which at the moment it is, it's not a big problem for me to work alone. I think, okay, I'm happy keeping it like this.
So if you think of this person who wants to become a YouTuber, looks at this creator lifestyle, feels inspired by it, what's your advice to them?
Well, I think firstly, I know it sounds cliched, but they have to pick something that they're genuinely interested in, because if you're starting off making content, you're going to be doing a lot of it before anyone really watches your videos. So you're going to have to make sure that you're having fun, even though you might not be getting that many views or getting paid for it. And I think part of the fun of social media is just being able to share something that you love with other people. And then that attracts other people who like the same things you do. So that's win-win. So you get to talk about whichever hobby or whichever passion or sport that you're interested in with other people, and that in itself is a reward. So I think people should use that as the motivation to get started, rather than thinking down the line, I want to make money from this, or I want to be famous, I want to this and this. Like, that all comes much later. And I also say that because I can always tell when you look at social media if somebody's really into what they're talking about or what they're doing on camera versus somebody who's just doing that because they think it's trending, and they kind of think if they use that format, it might go viral, but it never does. So it's that this kind of personal passion, it comes across even if you're not on camera yourself. And I find it hard to explain why, but you just know if you've seen enough channels, you can always tell if the videos that are really put together with a lot of love versus the ones that are sort of, just somebody trying something out, hoping that it would work because this format is viral right now. So that's what they're going for.
So normally I like to ask what success looks like. But I think back to all the previous conversations I've done recently, and you already have achieved a lot of the things that those people call success. So is there something you're still striving for? What are your thoughts on success?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I know I'm in a very, very privileged position that a lot of people will probably think, why would you be complaining about this and that? I think for me, on a personal level, I do struggle a lot every single day with trying to find the right work-life balance, because I've always been a workaholic. And I love my job because it's hard not to like something that you have so much fun in. And I think what I really struggle most is having to say I'm not working as much as I'd like to work. And that's because I have other commitments right now. Because, I'm a mom and I have a child. I have to, do all that stuff, which is nice. It's fun. But it's like a constant battle in my head where I think I would like to be doing more. I want to go back to working the way I worked 8 years ago. I was doing 70, 80 hours a week. I was in filming and editing for 10 hours, 12 hours. And I think now, even though I do have a lot of subscribers, it's still a lot of work to just keep the views going. And I find that I always feel like I'm about 10 steps behind where I'd like to be, because I'm always, it's like a car where you're allowed to drive fast for about 2 minutes, but then you have to stop. You're not allowed to just keep on going. You have to do it. I do a little bit. I upload a video, then I might not do anything for a day or two because I just have other commitments, and then I come back and then I do a bit more. And it's also that going in and out as well, which is slightly frustrating if you're a creative and you're kind of in the flow and you want to work on the project with all your passion for the next couple of days. But I never get that opportunity at this point in time.
So do you think we're going to see you still on YouTube in another 10 years?
I really hope so. I mean, I really hope that my channel will survive all the, any changes in the algorithm.
And you mentioned your daughter a few times. Would you encourage her to start her channel? Or is that something you like saying, no, this is off limits, I don't want her to deal with that?
It's an interesting question because I think she definitely has to be of an age where she's aware of what that entails. There's a huge issue about consent for showing children on social media. And you can say, I mean, at the moment, I wouldn't do it. People say, oh, well, but a 5-year-old can say she doesn't want to be on camera. But I don't think children of that age are aware of what that really means. That means you're putting yourself out there. And a lot of parents tend to exploit their children a bit too much for social media without the children being fully aware of what it is. But, once, if she's ever old enough to completely understand what that means when you have a digital footprint, you are on camera. And of course, you can be something off camera. That's what I decided when I started, is that I don't really want to be on camera myself. I want to most of my videos are just my hands. It's just me showing people something which I think is kind of cool. And if she wants to do that, that won't be a problem. So it really all depends on the exact details of what is going to be on social media. But I think in itself, making a channel, starting a channel and putting stuff online is a great learning experience. Like, I would encourage all parents to support their children if they want to do that. It's an incredible learning curve from filming, editing, putting up the shots, thinking about content like narrations, structuring of videos in a way that makes sense. Even if something silly like a vlog, but you still have a beginning, a middle, and end. You're always thinking, does this make sense? What is the audience seeing? What's the story happening? And I think that's great. Like, that's amazing learning experience that the children might not necessarily get from school. It's all self-taught.
So if people are really curious now to check out your channels to find you, what's the best way to stay in your orbit?
So my main channel is Maqaroon. That's where I upload all my long form videos, and I'm also active on Instagram.
I really hope these insights have sparked some inspiration and given you a fresh perspective on your creator journey. If you want to find more ways to become a better creator, check out the Orbit newsletter, a curated collection of the best things I discovered that week. Sign up for it via the link below, but now it's time to create.